Hello and welcome to Control Delete Tutorials. My name is Jason and we got kind of a long one for you today. We're going to talk about creating a shop, a text-based shop in Python, and we got just under 150 lines of code, so you may want to visit this video and come back to it. So we're going to start by creating a shop class. And inside of that class, we're going to put a couple of definitions. So let me kind of break down how this is going to work. So we will have a shop class, and it's going to have some functions in it. Now it's going to give us an inventory of just different items. So I've put together probably about 8 different items that are going to be in there. And they're going to have a cost associated with that. So we're going to use a dictionary for that. So I'll just put a dictionary for our inventory. And then after that, we'll include a couple of things. Some of the stuff you're not going to need. So the inventory you're probably going to need, but things like having a way to calculate tax. So taxes. You'll have a cart that will be a list, and you'll have some amount of cash that you can start the user out with. I'm going to have mine default to $20, and we'll talk about how you can display different numbers, different floats to show up as cash, and how you can format that. So you'll also have some functions. So we'll have functionality. So these functions that we're going to cover are adding items to a list, or add to a cart, removing an item from the cart, we'll get our total. We're going to do this in 2 different ways. One where we get the total, and one where we actually have a checkout system after we give them the total. So we'll do both of those there. We'll make it so we can display the cart. So we'll display the cart. And then we'll display the inventory items. So those will be some things we do. Now, outside of this class, we'll create a buy function. So that'll be its own kind of separate thing. And that'll just have some commands that we can put in for buying. So we'll say like we're able to like type help, and we can type in any inventory items to buy. We can print out the inventory, which we'll have a function in the shop for. And then we'll have a stop feature that just takes us back to the normal commands. So we'll kind of bring up or break up the purchasing and some of the other commands into 2 functions. And that'll get us to our about 150 lines of code. Probably about it. Yeah, we'll probably still be under that. So we'll start off with our class. So the way we define a class is we type the class keyword, and we're going to name it. I'm just going to end up calling it shop. And we put a colon here. So that's going to tab the rest of our code in that goes to this function. So any of our definitions will be tabbed in once, and then any of the blocks of code from our definitions will be tabbed in once again. So the first one we want to have is we want to have the initialize function. So that's going to be 2 underscores. And then if I type I, we're going to see the top one here is init. So that's for initializing. So we can go ahead and hit tab there or just touch it. Otherwise, you'll underscore twice, INIT underscore twice, and then self. Now in the parameters here for the initialize, we're going to add in one extra thing. We're going to say cash, and we're going to give it a default value just so in case you don't end up putting in cash, we're going to start the player off with $20 for getting everything that they want in their list. Now I did $20 because I wanted to add enough items to the list so that the if I buy one of everything, I've covered everything and I'll have some money left over. All right, so to define our variables, so first we're going to start with our dictionary. So to define the dictionary or the inventory variable, we will start off with the word self. Okay, so this is getting a reference to the object we will create after the fact. So once we get out of the shop class, we'll end up creating an object that references all of this code here. So that's why we start off with typing self. So we'll have self.inventory. And the way we write these, we'll have equal. And we use curly braces to define our inventory. It doesn't have to be written this way. You can write it on one line of code, but it's going to like take up the entire screen. So if we have a bunch of items, it's just easier to kind of type downward for these. And since we have the curly braces there, it'll encapsulate all of those different items. Just know that when you have a dictionary, the dictionary, I'm going to erase this bit of code, will have key value pairs. And they'll be written this way. So we'll have key and values. Okay. So in this case, the key that I want to use is going to be the name of the item. The value is going to be the cost of the item. So these pairs will work together. So you'll see some examples here. So first, I want to have milk. We have a colon. And then we have the cost. Now I'm just making up these costs. They're not based on like real prices or anything like that. I'm just kind of putting in stuff. So if you were setting up a shop in a game for like an armory or something, and you want to put swords and shields and whatever in here, you could do that and switch out your prices. You could use all whole numbers. You don't have to use floats. I'm just using floats because that's how money works in my world. Okay, so you'll have a comma after this. Now normally if we were typing, you could just keep putting things here. But since we are using the curly braces, we're just going to go down. And I'm just going to put standard things that you might find in a grocery store. So eggs. And I'll make those $2.49. And then bacon. I was making breakfast while I was writing some of this, so I put a lot of breakfast items in mine. Okay, make sure you put in the commas in between every single one of these. And then I just did this part because I thought it was fun. I'll do 159. And again, whatever items you want, you just add those. This is just a reference to an old meme. All right, eggs, bacon, grits, sausage. I'll do 149 for that. And then we did cereal. And write as many of these as you want. I just wanted to create about 8 of them. 229. And then can't have breakfast without soda. That's a joke. $1.19, and our final thing will be chips. Okay, colon, price for chips. I'll say it's $1.25. Okay, the last item in the list does not have a comma after it because it is the last item. So the comma separates all the values, key value pairs. Okay, so that's going to be our inventory. Okay, no underlines there, so everything looks good. We'll create the rest of our variables. So self. Okay, if you're not going to include tax, you can just take this part out of here. You don't need that. I don't know what tax is exactly, but I'm putting 0.7 for tax. And then we'll have our cart. Okay, that's going to be a list. It's going to be empty, so we're just going to start it off with empty square brackets, just so we can denote that it is a list. And then self.cash. equals our cache variable from our parameters up here. So if this was called gold, you would put gold here. You could put self.gold, or you could do self.money equals gold if this is called gold. Okay, so that's going to be it for our initialization. Next, we'll start off by creating our different functions that are going to go with this. So I'll hit enter a few times. It seems to be in Python that if we're just dealing with definitions without them being in a class, it wants us to hit enter 2 times for formatting, or 3 times. But if we're in a class, it seems to be fine with us doing 1, or 1 space in between. So we can do enter, enter, backspace. Now we don't want to backspace too far because we do not want to go outside of our class right now. So, okay, we have 1 tab in for our definitions, our methods or functions, and then 1 tab in for the blocks of code there. So here, this is going to be a function to add items to our cart. So I'll just go ahead and list this here. You don't need to write this. So add an item. I always do say it's good to comment your code. Add an item to the cart if it's found in the inventory. And that part's important, inventory. Okay, so we want to make sure we're tabbed back in. All right, so we will define add to. Now you could call this add to cart. For whatever reason, when I was typing the code, I put add to list. So, let's go ahead and do add to cart. That makes more sense. I'll just make sure I change it in my notes after the fact. Okay, so add to cart, add to list, whatever you want to call it. We'll also start out with self because it is referencing this class. Okay, and in here I want to intake some item. I also want to spell item right. Okay, so I'm intaking some item that we will check against our code. So this will be a string when we use this function elsewhere in our code. All right, put the colon there to begin the block of code. So here I want to say if whatever this item is, if that item is in our self.inventory, and we're going to use the dot operator again, and we're going to say if it's in our keys, okay? So our keys, remember we have key value pairs here, keys and values, okay? So if it's in our keys, so here if I'm searching for an item, it's going to say, basically, this will be some string. If this item is in self.inventory.keys, and with a colon there. So if it's in there, we want to add it to our list. So we can just do that by saying self.cart. And since we're dealing with a list, if we want to add something to it, we have the append function. Okay. Or method, whatever term you like to use there. Okay, so append. So append is going to allow us to add an item to our list if it is found as one of the keys. If it's not, we'll deal with that later. So here, we can just say item. So the item we will add is whatever item is input into this function when we call it. Now, we could have an else statement that says, oh, this item is not found here. I'm actually going to handle that in a different part of code, so we'll worry about that there. So enter a couple times. We'll backspace. I'm going to put a comment here for the next function that we'll have. So the next function that I want to have is to remove an item. To remove an item if that item is found in the cart. Okay. Okay, we'll tab back in. And so here we're going to go with, call this remove item. Okay. Now again, you may not want all these functions, but if you're going to make it to where they can remove an item or add an item, you may want to remove one in case you went over on cost. Okay, so remove item. And again, that's going to start with self. And then we're going to say item. Okay, so remove item. So if the item is found in the cart, we'll remove that item from the cart, and then we'll print a message to say, hey, we removed this item from the cart. So if the item is in self.cart, I'm going to use our colon there. So if the item is in our cart, we'll call self.cart. And just like we have append, we also have a remove function. So we will remove, and the item we want to remove is the item. So we're going to remove that item. And then we want to print a message. So we're going to print a message that says we removed that item. So we're going to do a formatted string, so F, and then our quotes for that, so we can put in variables. So in our parentheses, remember the parentheses are where we put those variables that are going to show up in the formatted string. So it's our kind of placeholder for that. So here I'm going to say item, so that's the name of our item. But this takes place at the beginning of our sentence, so it should be capitalized because the item would go in to the list uncapitalized. So we're going to say item, and then we want to format this item to capitalize. So item dot capitalize. Okay. It's not giving me any errors there, but for some reason it wasn't finishing the code out, and that's always a red flag to me. So hopefully everything will be fine there. Should be. Okay. So this item was removed from your cart, and I'm going to end many of my function calls with a \n, so that way it gives me a blank line underneath the messages that I print, so I can kind of separate out different functions when they print to the console or terminal, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, that should all work there. Should be fine. I guess it didn't finish because it's not certain currently that this is a string based off of, we haven't defined any of these things. So that's probably why it didn't finish here. By the way, if at any point you get underlines, pause the video, go back, check for errors at that point, or check for, just check for errors, look at my code, look what I typed, try to make it match. You really need it to resemble what I'm putting on screen. All right, so that is the end of our remove function. If the item is not found in the list, we can also handle that later. We could also decide to print a message here. So we'll see how that's going to be handled. So we'll hit enter 2 times. We're going to backspace. I'm going to leave a comment here. So here I'm going to say get the total cost and check out. Okay. So here I'll get a new function that I'll call total cart. Okay, we're not going to put anything into the parameters except for self. All right, so here we only want to total the cart if there are items in the cart. So if there's no items in the cart, this function doesn't need to happen. So here we can just put an if statement to start off that says if the length, so we're going to use the length or len function that's built into Python. If len, and in parentheses we're going to put the cart, so that'll be self.cart. So if the length of the cart is less than 1, so it means it has no items in it, then we just print a message to tell them to add an item to the cart. So that'll stop weird things from printing out where it just says cart and there's nothing in it. All right, so please add items to your cart, something like that. Okay, and I'll just do a \n to give me a space underneath this when I print out the message. In the other videos I've done on these, we haven't used \n yet, so I figured I would just put that in this one. We're also not going to be using our time.sleep. If you want to use that, go back and see some of the other videos I made where we paused after different parts here, but I'm just not adding that into this video. If you want to add that in, just go check out the other videos. All right, so here we want to get a total that we want to print out. Okay, so I'm going to just create a variable for my total and set it to 0 to start with. And then I'm going to go and check in a for loop for every item that's in the cart. I'm going to add that item based off of its value to the total. So if I find milk, I know to add this amount to this total. So what does that look like? So we use a for loop. So here I'm going to say for item in self.cart. So it's going to go through every part of our cart and check it. Okay, so for item in self.cart. We'll take our total and we'll do plus equals. So we're going to add to it. Now the way we get the value from our inventory dictionary. So the way we get this value, so if we got milk or eggs, whatever, the way we add that in is we can just call self.inventory. Now, if you're not in a class, you don't have to call self. So if you're just in a function that you wrote outside of a class, self is only if you're referring to an object you've created from a class. Okay, so this is going to be inventory, and we're going to use the dot operator. What we want to get from here is get. So that is going to be the function or method that we get from the dictionary, which is our inventory. And inside here, we're going to check for an item. So that item, so this item does not refer to any of these items that we've called in these functions. Okay, this is an item that's going through this cart. The cart is made up of a list of strings. Every time that we've added an item to our cart, it's just been the name of that item. So if I typed in milk, the first item in that list would be milk. So if that was the case, down here, item, the first time this for loop runs, the first cycle, would equal milk if that was the first item in my list. And so it's going to go through, it's going to add to the total, it's going to say go to the inventory and get the milk item and return the value of this. So 3.59 is going to get stored to the total. So for every item, it's going to go through and do that. Okay, once we finished, we're going to break out of our for loop body of code by backspace. And we are going to say total plus equals our total multiplied by self.tax. Because we want to add the tax on after we've added all the items up. Okay, if you don't have tax, you're going to leave this part out. Okay, so that's only if you have a tax. Okay, then we could print out a message that simply says, and this is going to be a formatted string. So this will say your total is, I'm going to put the $sign so it looks like actual cash. And in our curly braces, we're going to put the total. Now, we're dealing with money. We want to make sure that our cash has 2 decimal places so that it appears correctly. Now, the way that we can do that is we can put a colon next to our total, and we can put .2f. Okay, so .2f, f being for float for this format. .2 is 2 decimals after the total. So if it has to, I believe it does also round up to the nearest decimal for precision there. But we're not so worried about precision, so if it was like 1 penny off, honestly, we're probably not going to care, right? Even if we were in a store. Okay, so we're going to have the total formatted to 2 decimal places. Oops. And then we're going to say after tax. Okay, so that's our total after tax. We're going to end that with \n in this one, just so again we get that space after the fact. Okay, now here, if we have enough cash to pay for this, we'll continue. If we don't, then we won't. Okay, so from this point, we're going to check if our cash, so that's self.cash, is greater than or equal to our total. Then what we'll do is we'll say cart command, so just making a different type of command for our input instead of confusing you with a different command that we'll use later. Since we're dealing with the cart now, I'm just calling it cart command. Okay, and this is going to use the input function. And we want to ask them, are they actually ready to pay? Okay, so ready to pay, and we'll give them a format to stick with, so y/n. I'll put a space there, and like I've done in my other tutorials, I'm going to convert whatever they type to lowercase, just like we did capitalize up here. That'll capitalize the first letter of whatever the item is and then lowercase the rest. So here we're just going to make everything formatted to a lowercase y or n, just in case they type either uppercase or lowercase. Okay, so if they type yes, we want to continue with the purchase. So here we'll say if that cart command, and what if they typed in yes, Y-E-S? So what I can do is I can just simply say, all right, get the first letter of whatever they typed. So if they typed in yes, we'll just get the very first letter. And if that equals Y, then we know they typed something. They could type yeah, Yahoo, yellow. It would actually accept all of those as answers, but we're just trying to give them, the idea that we're only searching for one thing. We're looking for first letter being a Y. If it's a Y, accept it. Okay, if that's the case, we're going to print out a message that tells us how much cash we currently have, just so we know how much we have. So we'll print a formatted string. And we'll say you have $, curly braces. Okay, so I just realized in my notes I typed something wrong. I should save that. Okay, not that it's going to matter for you guys, but I just happen to notice I didn't write the right keyword there. Okay, so you have, and we want to reference our cash, so self.cash, and again we want to format this just like we did up here with our total. So we'll put in our colon, 0.2f. Okay, so that tells us how much money we have. And then if we do indeed have the right amount of money, because we've already checked that up here, and we've said yes to purchasing, then we're going to subtract that from our cash. So self.cash minus equals our total. So whatever the total currently equals, that will include tax because we've calculated that recently up here. So our total. And then we can say something like, thank you for your purchase, you have however much cash remaining, just to give them a little message. Okay, this will also be a formatted string. So we'll say, thank you for your purchase. You have, okay, we've done this before, $, curly braces, self.cash, colon, 0.2f, remaining. And then we'll do a period. Let me move this up just in case my picture's in the way there. remaining \n. Okay. Then the next thing we need to do is clear out the cart, because we don't want to, we haven't actually told them that they leave after this. So we want to make sure that the cart is cleared after purchase. So we can just do that by doing self.cart. And since cart is a list, we can use the clear function, which will clear the list. Okay. Now, this code only runs if our cash is greater than or equal to our total. What if it's not, though? Then we'll backspace so that we're lined up with this if statement. And we'll say, well, if that's not the case, if we don't have enough money, we'll say else. And we'll print a message. And we'll do a formatted string. And we'll say something to the effect of, sorry, you only have $, curly braces, we're going to put self.cash, and let's make sure we put in our .2f. Okay, so we format that. And let's tell them their total, just to really hurt their feelings. And your total is, same idea, we gotta do total, which we have calculated for them with tax. So your total colon .2f. Okay, \n. All right, so that is our total cart. Now, part of what I've done here, I can use again if I don't want to let them just check out, but they just want to know the total. Now, I do kind of have that code already written for us up here. And typically you don't want to have functions, like two functions that basically do the same thing. So it would have been smarter to write this part of the function and then copy that up into total cart. I'm just going to create basically a display cart and use part of that again. All right. So, and I'll show you what we can copy and paste out of here so we don't have to type it again. So we'll hit enter a couple times. We'll get back to our definition, make sure that's lined up. Okay, the difference here is this one is just going to be display total. So def display total. All right, so here we're going to get this part here, and we're basically going to go down to here. Okay, so technically I could write all of this in the other function and then just call that portion of that function there. I just need to make sure that the total stays with this. So since we're checking the total, I'm leaving it this way. It should be fine for what we're doing. So I'm going to copy this. Okay, this isn't going to ask them for anything. It's just simply going to use this. And we'll change the message just slightly. So again, copying from if, and if we come straight down, we're right before this if self.cache. Okay, Control C or Command C on a Mac. We'll come down here. We'll hit enter to make sure we're tabbed in. Control V, Command V to paste. All right, so if length.self.cart, yeah, that's all fine. So the only thing I'm changing in this function is how I'm printing out the information here. So I actually want to give them two messages here, one for the total without tax and one with tax, because usually you would see like a subtotal. So we can do that. So we can just say print. Okay, remember this is in our DisplayTotal function. And we'll do a formatted string, and I'm going to say your subtotal is $, curly brace, and here we'll do total :.2f. So that's before tax. Okay. Not doing a \n here just because I don't need a space in between these. Okay, so here we'll say total, we'll add the tax to it, and then we're going to print out your total is total after tax. So you're given both. You don't really have to say after tax, I guess, but you know, whatever. It's fine. Again, if you don't have tax, you don't even have to worry about that part. You can just leave that out and print a message to say what their total is. Okay. All right, that does it for our display total. Let's make sure we have everything. Okay, next we want to display the cart. So we'll hit enter 2 times. We'll backspace to here. Okay, I'm going to just write a comment to display our cart. Display our cart items. All right, so here, scroll down a little. So here I'm going to do define DisplayCart. Self. We'll have no other inputs for our parameters there. So here I want to check, okay, let's make sure again our cart is greater than 0. So if the length of our cart, we did this slightly differently on the other line, but just so we can see, we can go about this another way. So if our cart we did is like less than 1, we did one thing. We're kind of changing it around to where the else message is going to be the other option. So if the length of our cart is greater than 0, we're going to print the word cart. So something like that. And then I'm going to run a for loop. So the for loop here is going to say, for the items in our cart, print out the items. So simple enough. So that's for item in self.cart print. Now if we wanted to, we could format this to where we could do formatted print message to where we could like have everything tabbed over a little bit. So I tabbed it over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I guess spaced over would be the better term. That way when it says cart, it prints out the message for the items over. I just kind of like the way that looks. We'll do curly brace and whatever that item is. Okay, so that'll print everything over just a little bit. You don't have to do that. That's just, I want mine to look that way. So we'll print out the item. We can't do \n here because of the for loop. I don't want to have big gaps in between everything. So after this, if you just want to have a space afterwards, you can just print, call the print function and just don't put anything in it. That would do the same thing. Again, those are all formatting things that don't need to happen. Okay, so if our cart is equals 0 or less than 0, we can just say else. And here we can just print out a message that there's nothing in the cart. So we can just say your cart is empty. And then I'll do \n to give us a space after that. That should be it for display cart. And then final function that we're going to have in our shop class, hit enter 2 times, is to display the entire inventory. Now this is a function that it's up to you if you want to have this, but if you wanted to have the option to where they could see all of the items that they could add and buy, and then all of the prices next to that, this is what this function would do. So it's kind of a powerful function, And it allows you to do a couple of things that you may not typically do. So we'll try it out. Okay, so we're going to have display the inventory we'll display the inventory and format a string from our dictionary and remove certain symbols. Okay, so what I'm talking about, all the way up here, if I was to turn inventory into a string that we could print out, when I print it, it's going to have a couple things. One, it's going to give me quotes around all of my words, and I don't want that. It's not going to give me dollar signs, and it's going to give me commas, and I don't want any of that. So it would put brackets around things, or it actually put curly braces around things, and it would print it all out in one long message. What I actually want to have it do is print it in list form. So we got a couple of things that we can do. We can create a list out of it and format it in such a way that it takes out certain characters and adds in certain characters like dollar signs. So I'll show you how that works. That's not how you spell format. I is good at typing. All right. So our last thing here, so definition and display inventory list. I guess you could just do display inventory, that would work too. Okay. The reason I put list is because we're going to create a list in this. All right, so the first thing I want to do is I want to take our inventory and create a string from the inventory. So I want to take the entire dictionary inventory, and I'm just going to call this function inventory. Okay, so this inventory is not the same as this inventory. This one is self.inventory. Okay, this inventory belongs to this function or method. Okay, I'm going to convert a string. So the way we do that is we type str. Just like if we want to convert a number, a string to a number, we type int in parentheses. If we want to convert it to a string, we do str in parentheses. And here I can do self.inventory, and that's going to convert the entire thing. Okay. Next, I want to go through and I want to remove certain symbols out of this string so that when I print it out, it's formatted nice and pretty like. So I'm going to say inventory, and I'm going to say this equals inventory dot, and we'll see we have replace, and replace takes an old object and replaces it with a new object. So the first object that I want to have is what I want to remove. Now I want to remove a single apostrophe that I know will show up when we print out a dictionary. So the way I do that is I use double quotes, and inside of it I put a single quote. So that'll represent the first quote. So this is what I aim to remove. The next thing is what I want to replace it with. I want to replace it with nothing. So I can just use quotes. So it's going to replace it with nothing in between quotes. And that works. Now, I want to replace some other things. So I can just copy this code. Control-C, Control-V, or Command if you're on a Mac. And I'm going to call this, and I'm going to replace my brackets because I don't want the brackets to show up in my string from the dictionary. So again, I'll just do this, and I'm going to replace these brackets with nothing. And anytime we have a left curly bracket, we're always going to have a right curly bracket. So I want to remove that too. And finally, I want to go into the inventory. Now this one's a little different. We're actually going to replace a colon and a space with a colon, space, $sign. Okay, so if I do that, it's going to go up here, and when it prints this out, here we have colon space, it's going to do colon space $sign. So in front of all these numbers, we'll have $signs. Now, how do we get rid of all of the commas and add everything to a list? Well, luckily we have a split function. The split function allows us to take, they call it delimiter or a separator, and basically say, whatever, if you find this information in here, separate these out into different things. So we can use inventory, and we're going to say inventory underscore list. So I'm going to create a list that uses this inventory information. So the way I can do that is say the list equals inventory.split. Okay, so here we see split, and here we see the separator. So it takes in some separator. Okay, so all I've got to do is type in what do I want to separate, what do I want to separate each object when I create this list. So if we go up here, what I have is a comma, and they'd be separated by a comma and a space when these are all printed out. So my separator would be comma and a space. So I'm going to remove the comma and the space, and all the objects in my list will now get put into this new variable called inventory list. Kind of confusing, but it does work, I promise. So to print this out, I want to maybe not assume that there's a space above. I think I've done well to have spaces above everything, but I'm going to create a for loop. So I'm going to say for the current item in my cycle, for this for loop, in the inventory list, I want to print that item. So this is very similar to how we had printed out items before. And then at the end of my for loop, I want to break out of my loop. So I want to exit that body of code. And then I'm just going to call the print function so that I have a space under it when it prints out. Okay, so kind of confusing. We're taking our dictionary for our inventory, and we're storing it as a string, and then we're going through that string a bunch of times and saying, remove this, well, replace this with nothing, replace this with nothing, replace this symbol with nothing, replace this, and put a $sign in front of whatever that text is, and then split all of the different words if you find a comma and a space. So I'll you know what, let's do something and we can see what this looks like, just so it makes more sense. So I'm going to hit enter 3 times, and I'll backspace. Okay, that breaks us out of our, oh, we only need to do 2 times. Okay, that breaks us. It's probably because I have nothing typed there. Okay. So that'll break us out of our class. Okay, so our class goes from here down to here. Okay, so down here, this would be technically like my first line of code that's going to have any functionality here. So here, all I'm going to do is print. Oh, we have to get a reference to our shop, sorry. So let's do that first. Okay, so we want to create our shop. And we're kind of jumping around in the code just the smallest amount, but we'll get back on task here. So we'll create our shop. So our shop will equal the shop class, like that. Now we could put in a different amount. Up at the top here, we told it if there's no amount put in $20. That'll be the default. So if we wanted a different amount, we can put that in here. Now, I still have more code to write, different functions that I'm going to use. So I'm going to have more stuff above here, but outside of this class. But I just want you to see what that dictionary looks like. So to do that, I'm going to print, and I'm going to print out shop dot inventory. Okay, so what this does, shop references self in all of these spots here. So we've created an object out of our shop. It doesn't like that I don't have any spaces up here. Yeah, silly rules that they have, but whatever. Okay, so I've created an object from my shop, and anywhere that I have self.inventory, that's going to reference this. So down here where I write shop.inventory, I'm going to print out my entire inventory here. So if I print this, assuming my code is correct, so right click here and we'll do run in PyCharm. So here you can see the formatting. So I don't want everything to print out this way. Okay? So you see, I have a curly brace. Well, I've told it, okay, here we're going to remove this. So if I call this code display inventory list, let's see what that looks like in comparison. So I'll keep the other one here. I'm just going to print an empty string. Or an empty print message, just so we have a space in between these. So I'm going to do print, and I'm going to call on, actually I don't even have to hit print. I can just tell it shop dot display, because we have all these functions now that we created. Display inventory list. So this is going to take whatever this shop is that I've created. It has an inventory list, and we can display that inventory list code by calling this function of this shop class that we're referencing here in our item. So if I hit play on that, here's the difference. So we've gone through, this is how it would display just as text. And here's what it looks like when we format it and run it through to where it's printing every item one at a time. So now I can see milk equals 359, and I get some, it's all really nicely written. So I like the way that's written. It's much better. Nice and clean looking. And you see here, this is how we get that space in between these. So it's the same as doing our \n. All right, so all of this code, we need to write some other things before we get to starting this, because we want to create a shop class, or a shop function, so that we can, or a buy function, sorry. So we can go ahead and buy things that are in our inventory, in the shop's inventory, I guess. Okay, so hopefully you can see why I told it to remove all the single quotes, and these are separated by comma and space, and that's how this split function works. Gets rid of and splits up all the items based off of this split function and puts it into this list. Very handy feature. All right, so we don't need any of this stuff right here right now, so I'm just going to hit backspace on that. But I wanted to explain how that dictionary and how that display works from down below. All right, let's go ahead and minimize that for now. So now that we have our shop created, we're going to ask the user for a command. Now we will have basically a buy function that we use, which we're going to go ahead and create now before we start this shop part. So I'm going to go up here. I'm going to hit enter 2 times. 1, 2, 3 actually. And I'm going to backspace back to here. Okay, this buy function does not belong to our class, our shop class. Okay, this is just a function that I'm writing directly into the script. So this is going to be our buy function. So we're going to say def buy. And if you saw the tutorial where I create a bunch of rooms and stuff like that, this is going to look a little more familiar to you if you followed that one. Okay, so here we're going to say while true. Okay, so we're creating a while loop. And the only way to get out of this buy feature will be to type in a certain message. So we're going to first start off with a buy command for the user to type in. So this is where the user finally gets to do something in here. Okay, we're going to use the input function, which allows us to put in a prompt, as you can see there, prompt. And we're going to put, what would you like to buy? What would you like to buy? Okay, I'm going to put a space there just so they get a space next to it. And we're going to convert this to lowercase, so we're only having to check for lowercase commands. Okay, so in our while loop, I'm going to run a series of if statements checking for different things that they could do. So in this case, let's say the first thing that we give them is an option to type help. So if the by command equals the word help. Now you could print this all out using one print command, but I've had issues with that in the past, and I'm only printing out 3 lines, so I'll just do 3 print calls. So here I'm going to say print, and let's give them a space. So I'll do a /n here at the beginning in quotes. So /n at the beginning. That's not quotes. Quotes. There we go. /n. So that'll give us a new space before this message. And we're going to say you may type an inventory item or the words inventory or stop. So those are going to be our functions. Now we'll have another print command. This one is going to tell them what inventory does. So inventory equals. So this is to see a list of all items that we can purchase and the prices. So see a list of inventory items to purchase and prices. And our final print command there. And like I said, we could have done one and used triple quotes to like stack these out, but I always get things tabbed weird when I do this, so I just find it easier to do this. If we type stop, that equals to stop adding items to your cart. Okay, and then we'll do a /n at the end just to give us a space after the help message. Okay, so that's if it's the help message. If they type help, we get that. Okay, what if they don't type help? We want to check our inventory and see if the item they typed is in the inventory, and if it is, we can then go through and call the add function we wrote. So the way we do that is we'll say elif for else if, and we can just call, and this will give us a Boolean value. So if we type shop dot inventory dot get, and what we're looking for them to get is what they typed in. So that's by command. Okay, so like I said, that's going to be a Boolean value. If it's there, it'll be true. If the thing they typed is not there, it won't be true, and it'll just go to the next thing in our if statements. Okay, so if it is there, we're going to say shop dot add to cart, and the item we're going to add to the cart is our by command. So whatever they typed up here, whatever they typed, if it turns out that yes, that matched something that's in our inventory, then we're going to add that specific item. Then, why is that double quotes? That shouldn't be that way. I don't know why it was double quoted. I must have typed something. All right, then we're going to print a message to say we added that item to our list. So we can do that with a formatted string. And this is going to look familiar. We've done this before. Curly braces. We're going to say our by command, but we want to capitalize it. So dot, see, that time capitalize shows up. Okay, so we're going to capitalize whatever our by command. That's because it knows that the input whatever the input is a string. And so that's why .capitalize shows up here. After the curly brace before the quotes, we're going to say was added to your cart \n for n for a new line after that. Okay, so that would be added to our cart. But what if they didn't type that? What if they type in one of the terms that we said? If they type in the term inventory. So we can check for that. Now if our by command equals the word inventory. By the way, make sure your spelling on these words are all the same, because if they type in, inventory or something like that, that's not going to match up and they're going to be very confused. So you want to make sure that you've spelled it right on your end so you know that their code and their experience is going to be the same on their end. Okay, so if we want to show all of the items in our inventory, we made a function for that. DisplayInventory list, which was self. Okay, so self.inventory. So in this case, since we're getting a reference to the shop we created, we can just type in shop dot. We can call in the function for DisplayInventory list, which we created. All right, I'm going to hit enter. Next, we're going to check on if they type stop. So elif by command equals. So remember, we use two equal signs. That's our comparison operator to check between two things being the same. So by command equals stop. Okay, so if they type stop, then we can break, which will take us out of this while loop. And we don't really have to say anything here because it'll take us back to our other part of code, our other while loop that we are going to create here in a moment. And then finally, if none of these, that means they typed in something that isn't available. They just doesn't make any sense, whatever they typed in. So here we're going to say print. I'm sorry, I don't understand. And then maybe give them the option type help for a list of commands. And that should help them out. \n. Okay, so that's going to be our buy function. So those are all the things that we can do to buy things. All right, so that's going to call in that function. Now we could put the other function that we have, so like our standard shop function, we could do that in another function here. We're just going to do it in a while loop after here. So after we've created our shop, I'm going to come down and I'll create a while loop that's not within a function. Again, if you want to put it in one and call that, you can do that, but this is going to function very much the same way as our buy function here. So we're going to have a function that we take in, and we'll have one function that breaks us out of it. So while true, and this will basically take us to the very end of this. Okay, so in this case, we're just going to give them a command. So our command, and we want to check for help first. You don't have to, that's just the order that I'm doing it in. Oh, sorry, not help. That's my bad. Input. So command equals our input, and our input is going to say, what would you like to do? Okay, that's going to be different than what would you like to buy, because we have a couple more functions here that we can do. What would you like to do? Okay, we'll leave a space there. And we're going to convert this to lowercase, so we're only checking for lowercase items. Okay. So here, we'll start off with the help command. And again, you can convert this a different way if you want to. Okay, so this is our command equals stored help. I'm going to print a bunch of messages here. Okay, so the ones that I'm going to do, just to save you guys some time so you don't have to see all of these, is these are all the ones I'm going to add. Go ahead and pause the video. These are all the functions that I want to give. So I want to give an option, just like we did before, we start off with a blank space above. You may type, and we give them what they can type: buy, leave, pay, total, remove, or cache. Those are the different things. Depending on what you want to be able to let them do, depends on how your store is going to work. So I tried to give as many options as I could. So buy is going to take us up to the buy function. So it picks our items we can purchase. Leave will basically allow us to quit the game, because we'll be in a while loop that we can break out of. Pay will allow us to get our total of the items that are in our list and purchase them. Total is to see the total cost of your cart. Remove lets us to remove, that should say an item. Change that. An item from your cart. Cart shows all the items that are in our cart. And then cache shows us how much money we have. Okay, so that's going to be the first part. So again, pause the video, type those out for whichever ones you want. Okay, so now we'll continue on writing these functions. And the function shouldn't be too bad here. So we're going to check first for, and we're just going to do it in order here: buy, leave, pay, total, remove, cart, cache. So elif our command equals buy. Okay, so if that's the case, I'm just going to copy this, because we're going to be using this a couple of different times here once we're done. Okay, elif command equals buy. Well, we made a buy function. A buoy function. Buy. Okay, that's all we have to do for buy, because we have a full function that covers buying. So we've kind of abstracted that out. Okay, enter and backspace. I'm going to paste in the elif command buy, but I'm going to change it from saying buy to leave. Okay, so if they do this, I want to update our command so that it checks, are we sure we want to leave? Okay, again, you don't have to do this. You could just make them leave. They type leave, they probably want to leave. But I'm trying to show you how we can have a secondary condition put in. So here we can say, let's update the command for a new input. And in here, we're going to say, are you sure you want to leave? Are you sure you want to leave? Okay, question mark. Let's give them a format to stick to. So our format could be something like y, n. And we want to set that to lowercase. Okay, are we sure that you want to leave? And then we can just do like we did before in our other part. So in this case, if the command equals, actually, let's go ahead and make this a little better, just in case they type in a full word like yes. If command 0 in brackets, so that'll just check for the letter y being put in, equals y. We'll print out a message thanking them for coming to the store. So we'll just say, thank you for shopping. Have a nice day. Something like that. Nice message. Again, you can put whatever you want. Okay, and then we'll break out of this while loop. And that'll end the game at that point. Oops. I did enter there. Okay. We don't really have to check for no, because if we don't check for anything but y, it'll just go back and start this over again anyway. So we can just type for yes, or check for yes on its own. Okay, here we're going to, again, remember I copied this, so I'm just going to be pasting it in and changing this value out so I don't have to keep typing the same thing. Okay, so that's checking for leave. Okay. Pay will allow me to get the total like I did before. I wrote functions for. This is nice and easy. I can just type in shop dot, and we called this, I think we called it total cart up top. So we'll use that. I feel like we made something for display list up here. Did we ever use that? Display cart. Oh, add to. I just want to make sure that we did this. Add to cart, yeah. In my original code, I had list. I wanted to make sure we updated that in this one. So we're good there. Sorry about that. Just wanted to make sure we didn't screw you all up by putting add to list. If you typed add to list, you're going to want to change that. Okay. So elif command equals pay. That's all you have to do for that one. And our next one we're going to do is, let's see, we did pay. Let's do total. So if we just want to get the total on its own. Okay, nice and easy here. We're just going to say shop dot, and this is why we write functions like this. So when we want to call this code, we don't have to sit there and type it every time. We just create one function for it. Okay, shop display total. That'll give us a total of all of the items that we have. Let's see. Yeah, that's all we have to put for that one. All right, what if they put remove? So the remove function. Okay, so they type remove. What do we do in this case? Okay, we want to make sure that they have items in their list. I think we may have done this in the function, so this might be redundant, but it's okay. So if the length of our shop.cart, okay, so the length of our shop cart, so that is our cart list. So if the shop cart is less than 1, we know that it is currently empty. So we can do print, and we'll say something like, there are no items in your cart to remove. Okay, so no items in your cart. I guess we really haven't stuck to doing \n for any of these. We could go through, and it's really up to you if you want to have them. If you want to have the spaces there, we would just add them here. Make sure you do the right slash. Okay. Okay, that's for remove, but then we have to have an else statement in case there are items in the list. So here, we're going to just simply say remove command. So we could use the same command we've been using, but I'm not trying to overwrite things, and I figured this would make more sense because we're not still using the same command that we were using before. So this is going to be a different command. And this will say, what item do you want to remove from the cart? So we'll do our input function. What item do you want to remove from your cart? Okay, they'll type in something. We're going to convert that to lowercase. Okay, now we've already checked certain things. So if the item is in our cart, so if I go up here and we're going to call shop.remove item, and the item we're removing is that remove command. So what's going to happen is this item, whatever we've typed into our item to remove, will go up to our, so it won't be shop.remove item, it'll be in our shop class remove item. So this will take us up here. And here we will see if remove item. If the item's in the cart, then it removes it. If it's not, then it doesn't remove it. And we've already covered that if there are no items in the cart, what it'll do. We could put an if statement up there or an else statement that if it's not in the cart, we could give them a second message that says, hey, that's not even in our cart. And we'll see if we need to essentially do that. It's always good to kind of check over on things. All right, so that gets us through the remove function. If we have the user type in the word cart, we want to show all the items in the cart. We wrote a function for this, so that's simple. We can just say shop.DisplayCart. We don't have to put anything in for that. Enter and backspace. Again, I'm still pasting the same thing in. Here, if they've typed in cash, in this case, we didn't write a function to display their cash, but we can handle this with a print message where we use the formatted string. And you can just say, you have $, curly brace. And to show the cash, we can just say shop.cash :.2f. Make sure that we're formatting it to show two zeros there. So that'll show our cache. And I'm going to do \n just so we have a space after that. Don't have to worry about that one. Yeah, that should be good. Okay. Now, if they've typed none of these things, that means they typed in something that doesn't exist. That's where we put in our else statement. And this one will just be a print message that, again, tells them to type in help if they don't know what to type. So here you can just say, I'm sorry, I don't understand. So like we did before, type help for a list of commands. I'll do a \n to separate that out. And that takes us to the end. So we are under our 150 lines of code. Hopefully we've done everything right. Because we've written a lot of code. We want to make sure that functions properly. I think we've done all the things we've set out to do. So if we want to do this, I'm going to go ahead and hit play. And let's make this bigger. Make sure all of our stuff currently works. So what do we want to do? Well, what commands do we have available to us? Here we currently have buy, leave, pay, total, remove, cart, cache. So if I say leave, are you sure you want to leave? Yes. Thank you for shopping. Have a nice day. Okay. We tested that. That works. You want to go through and basically test that you can do everything that you set out to do. All right. So we did that. What happens if I type in total? Please add items to your cart. Oh, okay. What if I type cart? Your cart is empty. Cool. So we know those work with nothing in it. How much cash do I have? You have... that should have been a $sign. So let's fix that. So that would have been under the cash one. Maybe you already caught that. Typos are fun. That should be a $sign right there. That's my mistake. All right, let's rerun the code. Okay, what would you like to do? Cash. You have $20. Great. Okay. Let's try to remove. There are no items in your cart to remove. Okay, good. So we know that works. So everything works. Let's go to buy. So what would you like to buy? I don't know. Help. What can I do? You may type an inventory item or inventory stop. Inventory will allow us to see stuff. And you can see how everything's kind of spaced apart now, which we didn't do in the previous videos. We just kind of paused the in between each one. So what would I like to buy? So we're still in the buy function. So, okay, what items do I have? I have milk. Okay, milk was added to your cart. Eggs. Eggs was added to your cart. Bacon. Grits. Sausage. Soda. Okay, soda was added to the list. What else did we have? Chips. And I don't know what else we had. Let me check my inventory list. Bacon, grits, eggs, cereal. Okay, cereal was added to your cart. Let's type in something that doesn't exist. Pickles. I'm sorry, I do not understand. Type help for a list of commands. Okay, so they don't have pickles. Let's do stop. This will take us back. Okay, what would you like to do? So we're back to the other part. So if I type in cart, cart is empty. That means we forgot something. Cart is empty. Did we not add our items to the cart? Self.cart append. So we're going to have to check that. I know it works in my original one, but the logic might not be there, so it might be a logic problem. What would you like to do? I said cart. It told me the cart was empty. Okay, so we're going to go to DisplayCart and see what's wrong there. So it's probably just a simple thing, a little typo. So why we check these things. Okay, so what did I say? DisplayCart? I have no brain. Okay. So we're going up here, DisplayCart. If it's less, let's see, that should be less than 0. That's my mistake. Wait, if it's greater than 0. So if our cart is greater than 0, we would display it. Like self.cart greater than 0. Print your cart for each item. We print that out. Otherwise, we would print this. Okay, let's make sure we are indeed adding items to our list. So I'm going to go up here, add to cart. If item is in inventory keys, I'm going to check this against my code. I know mine works. So again, we're just checking for some sort of self.cart append item. Oh, there's our typo. In. Okay, make sure you check that. Okay, it's weird that it didn't give us an error. So that Python's mysterious that way. Okay, so make sure you check this. Okay, add to cart. It's up at the beginning here. Should be somewhere near line 23. Let's check that again. I'm going to go through and test this out again. Make sure everything works. Make sure we're adding items to our cart. What would you like to do? We will buy. What would you like to buy? I'm not going to put in everything just so I can check this. Okay, milk was added to your cart. We'll stop to go back to stop buying. What would you like to do? I'm going to type cart. Okay, we have milk. And if I hit total now, okay, your subtotal is $3.59 before tax. Your total is $3.84 after tax. Cool. So we have milk. What if we want to go back to buy more items? Buy. What would you like to buy? Can't have milk without sausage. I've always said that. Okay, let's check our cart, make sure things are working. I'm sorry. We have to go back to out of the buying part. I wanted to make it so you could buy a bunch of stuff in a row and not have to like keep going in and typing buy and then going to buy. Okay, what would I like to do? Cart. Milk and sausage. Good. Total. Should have a new total there. Your subtotal is $5.18. And that after tax. Okay, let's go ahead and pay for items. Okay, so we hit pay. Your total is $5.54 after tax. Ready to pay. So if I hit yes, thank you. Let's see. You have $20. Thank you for your purchase. You have $14.46 remaining, which should be whatever $5.54 subtracted from 20 is. Let's make sure our cart is clear. So if we do cart, your cart is empty. Good. So it looks like everything is working. There's a little more troubleshooting you could go through and try to figure out. But I kind of want to leave it at that. I think we've mostly tested everything to make sure it works. if I go back to buy and I buy a new item, so let's say eggs. Okay, eggs was added. If I stop and I go back, what would you like to do? Let's go to our cart, make sure eggs has been added. Eggs is added, good. And then, let's see, total. Let's make sure we can get a new total there, $2.49. That should be the price of eggs. I have eggs at $2.49, so that is correct. What would you like to do? Let's go back to buy. One thing we should check is let's buy as many things as we can and make sure that we can't purchase things if we don't have enough money. So I'm just going to type in milk a bunch of times. So we're going to add milk. Also, whoops. Milk. Okay. I don't know how many milks we would have to buy. So let's stop. Let's go to our cart and make sure we have multiple milks. So cart, eggs, and a bunch of milk. Total. Let's make sure that works. Your total is 24. Okay, we don't have that much money, so let's go ahead and pay. So we go to pay, and it says your total is $25.71 after tax. Sorry, you only have $14.46, and your total is look at there. We don't have a little dollar sign there. That's sad. Okay, so we could go fix that. That's easy enough to fix. Put a dollar sign in. So if we want to do that, we would just go up to our total, our first total one, so the one where it allows us to pay, total cart, and you only have that remaining. That's not that message right there, dollar sign. Okay, your total is that. Okay, that fixes that. Cool. The other thing that I did notice was when we were leaving the buy, it just put the next line of text under it. So if I wanted to change that, if I wanted to leave the buy function, so we type in leave, maybe we do a print with nothing in it. And if I rerun this, okay, here we have buy. That tells us what do we want to buy. So we could put a space there, but after I'm done buying a bunch of stuff, I'm going to have a lot of text. So if I do like milk, lemonade. That's an old joke. So if I do that and then I'm like, no, stop. Actually, this would be after we leave. Okay, leave. Sure you want to leave? If I say no, it should take me back. What do you want to do? Okay. So we could go in and split these messages up as well, but we're really getting long on this video anyway, so I'm going to end it here. So thanks for watching. Hopefully you found this. I'm going to do the thing that I do where I go up and I just scroll back through so you can see everything. But anyway, thanks for watching. Hopefully you found this tutorial helpful. Hopefully it helps you along. I'd like to see what you guys could do with it and see how you could go about changing this so that, you know, if you wanted to add other items, you could make a function that it adds to the inventory. Why you would do that as a customer, I don't know. But if you're going in, this also allows you to go in and create multiple shops. So if you had one for selling armor and one for selling swords or weapons, you could do that by having two different shops. And yeah, so that's all of our code. So again, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Give a like, all that crap. Take care. Bye.